Are we going?
We are live, so I don't know. We're gonna go. We're gonna go hard. That's what we're going hard to paint, right?
Let's do it. Let's pick up where we left off last week and just carry the baton forward. Let's go.
Twitter is going to ban us at some point soon enough, so we might as well get it all out there. Once we're banned, it will be whitewashed from history, so there's no fear, right? That's how it works.
I don't know. I'm hearing that the Trump administration is trying to solicit dollars for pardons. Maybe Jack can get paid off with money to stay on Twitter. I mean, there's a price on everything, right?
You weren't supposed to bring up my pardon for play or pay for pardon deal.
I didn't point any fingers. I was just saying, just in general,
you conveniently led the show with pay for pardon for pay. Thanks.
I mean, there may or may not be a host or two or listeners that would be important to. I mean, I don't know. Joe, if you're listening,
Yeah, I'll just say this. Let me see here. This might get loud. Let me do that. There we go. Okay. Let me ask you this question. Okay. Let's just assume that your net worth is $100. It's obviously like 100 million, but
that's bold. I was going to say the $100 is bold, but I mean, whatever.
It's really high. I know. Let's say it's $100. How much of that would you wager that Trump is going to pardon either Snowden, Assange, or Ulrich? Now you can do all three of those, one of those, any of those. If you had to put your $100 on the line, how much would you be willing to risk? If he does, you get a 10x return. If he doesn't, you lose 10x.
And I win the bet if it's one of the three. It doesn't have to be like two or three.
Any combination. You could say I think he's gonna do both or one or how much you willing to put up?
It's a really good question. I mean, I think that if I was making that bet based on sort of what his platform is and who he's espoused to be, I think that I'd feel fairly confident. I don't think that he will. And so, I mean, I'm going to be on the, I would probably put $12.
Wow. $12.
$9.
I would put like a penny, maybe 2 cents. I have no faith he's going to pardon any of those people. None.
Yeah. So for whatever it's worth, part of that answer is that, as we've talked about, maybe off air, and I probably should say this on air, but I have a different view on money when it comes to gambling than some. And so I was looking at that as just kind of a risk mitigation play rather than if you're asking me if I actually had the $100
you're going to lose $120 if you don't get any. It's a 10x loss.
Well, no, it would be more than that, right? It would be $1,200, right? If
on the
$12. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so you'd be net $20. You'd be working to pay off your debt because you'd owe 120. Your net worth 100. You'd bet you lose 120.
You said net 20. I was like, I'm with you now. Saying it a different way. I mean, I don't have any confidence really that he's going to do it, but I mean, I think that that's one of those things that if someone gets in his ear and basically if you were in his ear and you were like, hey, listen, you've been talking about this for 4 years, if you don't give these guys pardons, that's not good. That's not going to look good because I don't even know if he's really aware. I don't even give him that much credit. And so
if Snowden and Assange, Ulrich, I'm not sure.
What I mean more so is that I don't think he's aware of what it would look like if he didn't pardon them. To the public.
Oh wait, too soon?
But I'm bummed.
Sorry. Let me just
like I commented, by the way, on your earlier show. At least you have where that button is down now.
Yes, I've got that down, and I've got yours ready too.
Ooh, that's good. We're gonna have to use that later. No, that's gonna be good.
So, yeah, I don't think he's gonna pardon any of them, and I am working in my mind on a war room piece just to blast him if he does not. And I will say this: if I was in his ear, in all seriousness, and I was like, Donnie, whatever we call him, Trumpster. I don't know whatever you call him, whatever it is. Yeah, the Don. Listen, here's your options. A, you can pardon them. Cool. B, you cannot pardon them. If you choose B, understand that my tell-all novel story, whatever, my tell-all story, which I'm going to write regardless, is just going to be longer. So, however many of these pardons you pass out, we reduce it by 1 chapter. Okay, so you pick. You pick. Oh, by the way, if you throw one in for your boy, that's find out wise because then the tell-all is going all in. Like it's going all in. So if you pardon, tell-all is really going to be hard hitting. So balance that as you wish.
Yeah, it's a good thing you're not on the cabinet. No, I don't want to get into conjecture, and so all I'll say is that some of the names that are being floated around that I've read as like potential pardons outside of those three are I think unfortunately we're looking at a potential for President Trump to use the pardons just as kind of the last FU to America, really. I mean, because like some of the people that have been being talking about are. Whatever. It doesn't. I don't want to get into the weeds.
Yeah, you don't know how accurate that is, but we both agree that for the man who has ran on draining the swamp, find the deep state, to not pardon Snowden and Assange, you can put Ulbricht on the side for that argument. But Snowden and Assange, that's a no-brainer, home run. If you want to get back at those guys, you have to. I would argue the Ross Ulbricht thing. If you got to read how that went down, Kingpin, I think is the book. Whatever you think about what he was doing, there's no doubt that there was huge government corruption involved with that. That would also be a good way to get back at that. If you don't, but Snowden and Assange, those are have tos. Those are have tos.
I mean, I fail to see. Okay, so let's say that he does. Let's play the game that let's say that he does pardon both of those. I fail to see what the argument for. Okay, well, why did it take you to the last week of your presidency to do so? Like, I don't understand what the. Oh, I'm going to do that as like literally the last day in office. I mean, because we're talking about it has to happen tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I don't know if he can do it. I assuming he could do it up until
can you do it on the 20th?
Yeah, I don't know when the transfer of power officially takes place, but let's just say tomorrow for the sake of this podcast. Let's presume tomorrow, but it could be early morning Wednesday.
I mean, last 36 hours, whatever it is, right? I mean, I fail to see how he even gets like credit for that, really. I mean, like,
no. Yes, it's not. I'm not okay. Yes. So here's what I'm saying.
I wasn't saying you were espousing that. I was just making
right. Yeah. No. I think it's a fair critique. So this of what he's doing. So if he does pardon Snowden and Assange as he's going out, you can at least hold in your mind that he did fight the deep state and the establishment and all those people on some level. You at least can hold that position somewhat because he did offer the Tolkien pardons. However, if he wanted to win the presidency, he should have done this back in October or September or, like right before. He should have done this, probably not November, but October. This would have been the time to do it. I would have argued he should have 4 years ago. But let's say for whatever reason he didn't. So the fact that he didn't do it during his real presidency, he did during his lame duck period, is obviously an indictment on how serious he was about these things. And so, and just so we're clear, I know people were saying that Snowden is working with the Russians. Did you see Snowden's tweet today?
I didn't know. By the way, but while you're looking at that, quite a as you put I'm going to put air quotes, a lame duck session we're seeing in this presidency. Sorry. Anyways, what were you saying?
Let's see.
What did he tweet out?
So Snowden tweets out today. Navalny, that's the guy. I never heard his name pronounced. No. Navalny's arrest seems to me to be a repetition of mistakes made in the Soviet era, seen elsewhere now in the case against Assange, and the war on whistleblowers. States are developing an allergy to opposition, but systems that cannot accept dissent will not survive. Let him go. Just to be clear, for those of you who don't know, Snowden is sitting in Russia when he tweets that. Just so we're clear. It's a bold strategy, Cotton.
You have more? Would you like to? I was going to wait. I want to hear more. What else you got?
I mean,
so like, don't forget that. What was it? It was like early November when Snowden was petitioning for Russian citizenship. I mean,
yeah, I think so.
And now, it's like you said, bull strategy. I don't really know. I think the other side of that coin is that So I was as you were reading that, I was sort of thinking. I mean, I can't see this happening, but with Navalny I think that is how you say it. But the opposition leader coming in. So for those that maybe not following the story, so he was purportedly poisoned by the KGB on a flight from Russia to Germany, I believe it was. Has been in Germany for the last few months, recuperating. Is now better. Has been sparring, for lack of a better word, verbally with the Russians and with Putin for the last few months, kind of over the accused poisoning. And he flew back last night. He was supposed to fly into Moscow, and then his flight was diverted. He was picked up. He was arrested at the airport. Knew he was going to get arrested even before getting on the flight, so it wasn't like that was a surprise. But I do think it's interesting that power play, because now that those facts are sort of out in the open, and I don't know if this is where you were going, but what I was thinking about this morning is, if they pull an Epstein here, the writing is on the wall, right? Like
if they've poisoned him once.
So I was listening to your podcast this morning, and it said you and Josh were talking about something about that this podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and don't let the facts. If we can get that ticker, that'd be great. That rolling ticker. That there it is. Thank you.
Just in case you have the people with bad eyesight, it's there.
But no, I think it's a very well orchestrated attack plan by the opposition, and I say attack plan more in a passive sense, but a kind of playing defense. Because now that he's arrested, they sort of already tried to kill him once, and do you go back down that well?
Yeah, do he go with the poison strategy, or he fell on a noose strategy? I don't know.
I mean, you might want to consult with some people on this side. I mean, Oh, sorry.
Guys, the guards need to fall asleep. The cameras.
It's a whole thing. I mean,
cameras gotta quit working. Like, this is pretty simple.
I mean, hey, you could even look at that El Chapo footage. Have you seen the El Chapo footage where he just disappears behind that cement wall? Yeah, in Mexico.
Yeah.
They just appeared behind the cement wall, and they had dug this 5-mile tunnel to get him out. I mean, there are ways.
And the thing that frustrates me about this argument here is people say, well, Snowden is not an American hero because he did this, and this. His motivations were pure. Like Navalny. I don't know if Navalny is actually the best guy to lead Russia. I have no idea on that. And I'm not trying to weigh in on that debate. I don't know what Snowden thought, what his motivations were. I've read his book, but I have no idea. Was he, does he hate the U.S. government and he's just trying to get back at him because he's a communist, or does he love freedom like he says he does? I have no idea. I really don't. Nor do I care, though. What I care about is the fact that the government continually suppresses things over and over and over. They've got to now where they their lunch schedule is redacted, like someone else I know, and it's classified, and so then they spy on you illegally. We talk about the FISA courts, and so from that standpoint alone, the fight for Snowden is about a larger argument about your ability to whistleblow, if you will, on the government or expose government corruption. And just so we're clear, Snowden cannot actually give a defense of why he did it. It's just either he did it or he didn't do it because of the way the law is written. So the whole thing is terrible. And so I think some people get bogged down in the weeds of what was Snowden's motivation. And that's not always necessarily relevant in a exposing government corruption case. I'm saying it's fine to discuss, it's fine to question. Those are good questions to ask. But whether or not a crime was committed, if it's a crime to expose a crime being committed, then that's a bad spot to be in. Right? If it's a crime to expose a crime.
I'm making sure I follow that. Yeah. I mean, I think that in this example, yes. I mean, I think that there's other examples where you could apply that standard where it may but yeah.
No. I'm not saying that there's not some cases you might say, well, what about this round? Sure. I'm saying generally, if you say, hey, it's a crime to expose a crime, it's like, well, that's, I can see there being problems there.
I mean, you like to say yes, but all the time. So you should say yes and a lot more often.
Sorry, you bring it out of me.
So, where isn't Assange currently locked up though? Somewhere
he's in Britain, isn't he? In London somewhere.
I thought he was in prison.
Yeah, like they got him.
In London.
I think so.
So I mean, even if Trump pardons him, doesn't
I wonder about that because we can't extradite him.
Right.
So,
Oh, that's right. That's right. It was in the fall. The U.S. Requested extradition and got it denied. Was that what it was?
yeah.
Okay.
When you Google it, the top hit right now is Pamela Anderson says Donald Trump is debating pardoning Julian Assange. Where is what's going on?
I mean, Kim Kardashian did it. Why not Pam Anderson? You know, it's been a minute since we heard from her. Why doesn't she come back?
Pamela Anderson says Donald Trump is debating pardoning Julian Assange.
If only I looked like that, I could get the same byline. I mean,
I don't even know. I don't. The worst part is that we've got to take it as credible.
Oh, it probably is. Trump is probably holding Pam's phone. What are you talking about?
He's tweeting from her account.
He's subtweeting from her account. Unbelievable.
Oh man.
All right. So last week I said some inflammatory things at the end of the podcast that you wanted to.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, absolutely not. But you actually wanted to hear more so you could understand why I thought the way that I thought, and you could come over to my side of the fence. So I figured we would unpack some of this and go from there. So why are you against diplomacy?
Okay. Oh gosh, I love.
Oh, was that not a good lead-in? I'm sorry.
That's a perfect lead-in. That's a perfect lead-in. That's perfect lead-in. So I will pull this up for you. This is why I'm against diplomacy. Let me pull this tweet up. First off, we have to go over the Biden staff deal, right? Like we have to talk about that at some point.
I'm having a good day so far. Do we have to? Do we actually have to?
No, we don't actually have to. We don't have to. Let's see here. This came out from Reuters on. Where's it at? Oh gosh, I had it up earlier and I closed it out. Oh, did you see Chicago mayor is now saying that we have to open quickly as possible?
Don't get me started. Yeah, don't get me started. Listen, anything you hear out of Chicago from the government, just ignore. Just on any level whatsoever, you can just put it in the trash bin. All right, did I say that out loud? I hope we don't have any Chicago listeners.
I'm a Chicago Blackhawks fan. I love Chicago. Okay, here you go.
That like your government? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. Okay, this is from January 16th in the serious newscaster voice on. Berlin hands transcripts to Moscow for probe in Navalny poisoning. Germany has given transcripts of interviews with Alexei Navalny to Russia as part of Moscow's probe into the poisoning of the Kremlin critic. A Justice Ministry spokesperson said, demanding a thorough investigation into the crime. The ministry said Russia now had all the information needed to carry out a criminal investigation into Navalny's poisoning in August last year, including blood and tissue samplings. The German government assumes that the Russian government will now immediately take all necessary steps to clarify the crime against Mr. Navalny, the spokesperson said. This crime must be solved in Russia. This requires investigations commensurate with the seriousness of the crime, the spokesperson added. I'll quit reading propaganda there.
If you believe that I also have some oceanfront property in Arizona to sell you, what? Oh my Lord.
Okay, so you have Berlin telling Russia, hey, you've got the stuff. Go free the Kremlin critic that you've tried to kill a few months. Oh, by the way, as soon as he lands, they haul a judge into the police station and hold an emergency trial to lock him up on probation violations for 30 days. Raise your hand if you're shocked. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. Sorry.
Excuse me.
Sorry. Yes.
I mean, it's pretty audacious to say, hey, listen, we're going to return the guy that you poisoned is coming back, but it's on you guys to fully investigate the crime of poisoning him, even though who poisoned him was you guys, and you guys have been spending the last 6 months saying you had nothing to do with it, but we expect full transparency. Sure.
Yeah, okay. You're wrong.
Sorry, did I miss something there? Did I
think you get the cliff notes for sure. I mean, yeah. So when you talk about diplomacy, this is what I look at and say, this is how the world actually works. So we can pretend like the World Health Organization, NATO, the UN, we can pretend like there's diplomacy and there's things that are of importance that are getting done. These are the people that run the world that are putting out press releases that the guy in Germany has no pretense that Russia is going to do the right thing. There's none. I don't have it. You don't have it. No one has it. Mulvaney doesn't have it. And so the fact that they put these pretense, I would much more appreciate the Germans being like, listen, bro, we offered Mulvaney asylum. He could have stayed here forever. The dude's a gangster. He's going back. We wish him well. We've got the poison doctors on standby.
I guess
go ahead.
No, I think my response to that is, I know that to a degree you're making a joke, but I mean, the other side, I think you're somewhat serious. Like, I think my response to that is that I have an issue with our diplomatic response and efficacy and platform being on par with like Russia. I don't think that we should. Germany. I don't think that we should look at
Germany. I'm talking about Germany.
But same thing with Germany. I mean, like Germany is not a world power in the sense that they hold no weight unless they have the other, their cronies around them with them. Like the U.S. is the dominant super. Like so like the same thing. I mean, like I don't think that those are apples to apples. I mean, the only comparison you can make, I think, in terms of potential weight to throw around are the other big boys. I mean, you got China and Russia, but I'm not going to expect America to respond the same diplomatically, because it's one thing to respond that way with, I mean, we've spent the last 200 and however many years espousing worldwide diplomacy. There's been some pockets where we've sort of done the withdrawal and done the isolationist thing, but I think it's a tough. So let me say it this way: I think it's a tough sell for every 4 years for there to be a shift of like, okay, we're now going to starve the WHO and the UN for money, and okay, now we're going to recommit, and so when Biden's going to come in a couple of days and he's going to try to re-enter the Paris Agreement and re-enter the UN and re-enter a lot of the WHO stuff, a lot of those bases and a lot of that money has been allocated and a lot of those roles have been delegated to Russia and China and Australia and some of the other and Germany and some of the other powers, and to think that we can just, okay, now that Biden's administration is focused on being diplomatic, that we can just like step back into those shoes. And then in 2024, let's say a Republican gets elected and he's more isolationist, or he or she is more isolationist. And then, we start to withdraw. And so now not only domestically are we having issues with sort of the back and forth, now we're sort of wreaking havoc on the global system. And what we were talking about last week, I think where the conversation was going, because I think that you and I both agree at current that the WHO and the UN structure, the US involvement, the US say in activity, et cetera, is in an imbalance. I don't think that is appropriate, but I don't think the answer to that is a withdrawal. I think the answer to that is more active engagement and utilizing the platform that we have to sort of craft, okay, no, like it doesn't work the way that we've been doing it for all these years. We need to do it this way. I mean, because you saw like during the Bush years, there was a lot of ruffled feathers over the Iraq War, and then Obama had more of an impetus to come back in. And it was like, so we see this sort of changing of the guard. It's not like this is a new phenomenon, but I do think that I think that the way that Trump kind of, or the administration sort of went about diplomacy with an explicit, we are not diplomatic. That's a tougher bridge to cross back.
Okay. So the problem I have with your thesis is, again, whatever America says, this is what you're getting from Germany. And so all I'm saying to you is that your thesis seems to be predicated on there are good, humane actors that are acting in these roles. And my point is that when you see this with the Germany-Russia deal, I'm not talking about Russia, obviously, because they're totalitarians, they're dictators, Putin, all that stuff, oligarchs from that country. So, but you see how Germany handles them, and so Germany has no pretense that this is a sham, a crime, or any of this stuff. That's why they worded it the way they did, because they're scared of the Russians. So let me give you an example. So I listened to a podcast the other day, and I'll see if I can find the name of the podcast.
Okay, as you're pulling up, I mean, if you were Germany, wouldn't you be afraid of the Russians?
Well, then why? Okay, then why are you buying stuff from them constantly and saying that you need support to help you, us to help you? So I was listening to the China Power podcast the other day, and I can't remember the episode. Let's see if I can find it. And it was talking about
Who's the host of that one?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's the Center for Strategic and International Studies, um, and it says, "How should we respond to humanitarian crisis?" It's talking about the Uyghurs. Okay. And one of the things this guy says, they said, well, how do you handle the Uyghur situation? And he goes, well, we've got to let people know what's going on. And, the folks in the EU are kind of reluctant to believe it. It's like, what? The folks in the EU is what he said is the folks in the EU are reluctant to believe what is happening to the Uyghurs. Now, for 1 second, Ben, do you believe that Merkel, Macron, any of these leaders in the EU are reluctant to believe the atrocities that are happening with the Uyghurs in China?
Absolutely not.
Right. But that's the public stance they take, that they're reluctant to believe it. They're not sure. They need convincing. And so my point is that you talk about
I think so. So now that you say that, I think that we're talking parallels because I'm not talking about the public PR facing. I'm talking about the actual work. I'm talking about like the mechanics of the peacekeeping missions and the actual dollars being spent on like the jobs for the internal investigation type stuff. And like I'm not talking about the way that the countries interface with each other because I think that's that's going to happen regardless, and that's going to happen in any forum you pick. So maybe we're talking about two different points here.
Well, maybe so. So let me address the in the weeds part in a second. So publicly, you see how they interact with each other, and it's just a bunch of fluff and BS. Well, then when you go read like the Bottom Billion or the Dragon's Gift or any of these books that deal with international aid and how it's actually applied, what you find out there is that the corruption on the weeds part of it is far worse than what you're being told publicly. Because publicly they put the spin on it as if this is going to help people. We're going to do the right thing, da da da. And so, citizens of the world read the headlines because we can't investigate every UN scandal or every WHO scandal or whatever. We just got to. And so, what we get is this whitewashing of what's going on. And so, when you say the U.S. should use its power to influence foreign, I can't remember how you said it, but basically these world organizations, I don't disagree. The problem is that that Biden, Trump, Obama, it's just a big whitewashing of what's going on, and nothing's really happening of substance.
I don't disagree with that. I think what so something else that I think maybe swaying my opinion in this that we haven't talked about here a little bit more is the WHO, UN, all these NATO, all pick an organization. They're all going to run with or without the U.S. involvement on some level, no level, a lot of like doesn't matter. They're going to run. And so if you're going to try, and I'm not saying you are, but if the pitch here is the U.S. withdrawing is a net benefit to the U.S. because we don't spend the money there, okay, so that's an opportunity cost. You're not spending the money, but what does that mean when, so like, let's say that China takes the seat of one of these major programs and they put up the $10 billion to fund something. And now you've got China has a world seat at the WHO. Is that good for the other players involved, or like NATO or UN, or like, is it, so let me actually, without specific examples, would you think that it is a good thing? Because in my opinion, if the US is not involved or extricates itself from involvement, those roles will be filled by others. And those others may or may not want to play ball with us and be nice, or may not be the ones that we want to sort of have the reins of power within whatever seat that is within that global context. And so I think that by a large degree, I mean, because you're talking about, and it's a large amount of money in like dollar sense, but you're talking about tens of billions of dollars in yearly, in annual aid. If that means that you sort of get to dictate the conversation and control all of the mechanics within those organizations, that seems like a really good price to me. And so I don't mean, I'm not talking about the diplomacy stuff that you're talking about when I'm looking at the decision to withdraw. I think maybe I'm sort of on the other side of the fence. What do you think about some of that stuff?
So I think that's a fair concern. And again, my pushback would be is when you look at when Americans are frustrated about losing their jobs to China, again, we're lied to about what's going on, what's happening, and so if China were to take the spot of the U.S. In the World Health Organization, well, the WHO lied to the world for months about what was going on with China. So they lied and said that China was working with them, and they came out and said no, they weren't. All while Trump was saying that they're lying, they're lying, they're lying. Now, I don't know if Trump knew or Trump was just spat off. I don't know, who knows? But Trump happened to be right for whatever it's worth. And so, but then yet people are mad that we're pulling out of the World Health Organization. It's like, well, hold on, we can't have all these things at one time. Excuse me. Is the World Health Organization favoring China over the U.S.? I have no idea. In this case, they did lie to cover for them.
But, so not to cut you off, but like that specific point I want to make, because it kind of is counter. I think it's counter to what you've been saying in this, or for the Trump administration a little bit. I'm trying to pull up the article. I was reading it this morning, that the U.S. just like 2 days ago or 3 days ago came out and said that they wanted the WHO, that they wanted the WHO to have a full stack investigation of the Chinese and really get in there and investigate and do a full authentic or whatever independent audit. I mean, why is the U.S. why is Trump coming out there and saying that the last week of his presidency, if for the last 4 years he's been saying the things that he said and he was right about China? I mean, why would they backtrack like that?
So I don't know the reference that you're speaking to, so I can't say that. So Trump, I don't doubt you. I'm saying that you're saying the Trump administration.
Yeah. Keep saying what you're saying. I'll pull it back up.
Yeah, pull it up for me, please. So what did happen with the most recent WHO mission, though, was they were planning to go. China said, you're not welcome. And then China backtracked and said, okay, now you can come. And so I think the WHO, if they're being honest, is helpful to expose that kind of hypocrisy that's going on. The problem is that they're not being honest. So what the major problem in the world today, whether it's the U.S., whether it's South Africa, whether you're in India, whether you're in China, whether you're in Germany, I don't care. The major problem is that the global, and I hate to be like the global elitists who run the world. Okay, I'm not that. I'm saying that the deals that the elite strike disproportionately benefit the elite. Okay, yes. And so, okay, yeah, you said this to me earlier. I'm sorry, I didn't read it yet. I'll put up. They disproportionately benefit the elite. Now, whether or not that is intentional or it's just because they think this is best for everyone, I don't know. So the more pretense that we have that working together helps us is bad for the average person, because those deals just don't help. They just don't. What would be best is we all realize why these deals have been constructed, why the UN is the way it is, why NATO is the way it is. So do you think, I mean, how long do you think China could be at the top spot before people around the world like, screw this, I'm not taking this crap anymore, and so it's part of it. Go ahead. I'll skim this. Go ahead though.
No, I think that I think you're onto something, and yes, you're right. I think maybe the leading question that I gave you was sort of off path in the sense of maybe the better question is, are you proposing no worldwide diplomatic organizations at all, or are you just proposing a vastly different structure, or what is sort of your approach to? Because I think that there's a lot that the WHO and the UN and NATO, forgetting the political and forgetting the propaganda and forgetting all the noise, I think there's a lot of things that they do that are very valuable. Now you can make a conversation, like we have a total conversation about whether they're done well, etc. But I think there's a lot of goals that are whatever. Are you proposing no worldwide diplomatic organizations, or are you just looking at this as we need to do this totally differently?
Yeah. So I'm always reluctant to say that it would be better to tear everything down tomorrow, because I don't know what would happen. Right. So you kind of have two questions there. The first question is, are you saying to tear it all down today or tomorrow? No. Are you saying if we were starting over with a clean slate, would we do it differently? Absolutely. Right. So that's kind of the I don't want to, since we're not starting over tomorrow, we can't talk that way. Right.
So okay. So as a specific example, you're a lot more well versed in African geopolitics than I am, but I believe that believe it is the UN subsidizes a lot of food coming into Africa, and that feeds a lot of the people in Africa. If if those sort of food subsidies, and it might be the different organization, but if those sort of food subsidies for the impoverished and the poor are coming through those organizations, are you proposing that aid come through elsewhere? Are you proposing that like that aid is just like not going to come and those countries have to figure it out?
I'm proposing that it's not as simple, and I know you're not saying this, just so we're clear. I'm proposing that I don't think it's as simple as saying that we are giving food and aid, therefore we are helping. And so I think that if you read a lot of books about extreme poverty or nations that are stuck in kind of not emerging, but kind of the third world market, that the kind of the myth of putting forth aid is therefore going to help it. Now, again, you might say, well, okay, if you didn't do anything, they'd starve to death. So we're sending them food, so they're not progressing, but they're not starving, right? So those are all interesting. You see how you can go
absolutely. So no, I think it's a great point. So I mean, I'm going to throw a scenario at you. I don't know if this is where you're going, but I mean, is the impetus sort of we're cutting off the aid, and this don't let the facts with this example, but is this we're going to cut off the aid and you're not going to get that anymore, and so the fact that your government is stealing the oil from the people and is proffering off that, or that it's being stolen out of the pipelines by pirates, like that's a problem that you guys now have to solve because you have the wealth in the country. You're just not treating the wealth the way it needs to be treated. Is that sort of the argument?
Yeah, okay. I like the way you frame that. So I think let's just pick up made up country X. So country X here, they have because there are some countries where the arguments gets really tough. They don't have a lot of resources, right? And they don't have, so that
but there's some on the other side,
right? There's plenty on the other side who have resources and they're being just literally screwed. And so for me, what I'm careful to do, I'm careful to say is that, guys, if we just tweak the UN program, things would be better. If we just tweaked our debt relief, things would be better. I'm reluctant to say that because I think that's what they're sold over and over and over and over again. And they've gotten nowhere with that. On the flip side, I'm also reluctant to say snatch everything up tomorrow because it might just be full on anarchy and be worse. What I want to say is that, okay, what we're doing is not working. I'm not sure if it's actually intended to work or if it's more intended to keep you where you're at. I don't know. It's not working. Also, we can't snatch it up. Also, we need to move to a system that allows more free trade, more free commerce. Whereas, and this is a problem not only in the local nation, it's a problem in the U.S. The U.S. laws, for all of our talk about free market, we're very restrictive on what we can do outside of our own borders and things like that. So we have to start talking about this thing, saying there is no one size fits all solution for all of these problems, right? There's just not. And so how do you roll back something in Nigeria versus Venezuela versus Mexico? Those are all different questions. What I don't want is for people to continue to hear these platitudes from the UN, from the World Health Organization, and believe that help is coming. It's not coming. Okay, and so now that we know it's not coming, then you start saying, well, should we be a part of it? If we could reform it in a way to allow us to be a part of it, it's a conversation I want to have. But before you can have that conversation, you have to laugh at the people who are saying, we sent the investigation, the stuff to Russia, and they're going to look into it. No, those are people who are not going to fix any problems. They are a continuation of the problem. And so I like the Germany example because Germany, on one hand, is saying, oh, dear God, please don't pull your troops out, U.S. Oh, by the way, hey, Russia, send us some more goods. Please, Russia, send us some more goods. And that's the kind of doublespeak that you get into. It's like, well, is Russia really bad, or is it okay to do business with them? I'm confused, because Germany seems to like it both ways. Is China really bad? Are they the biggest threat in the world, or is it okay to buy cheap goods from them? And so, those are things that, in America, Trump has, pounded that home. China's bad. We couldn't buy from them. And there's plenty of criticisms to be laid at the feet of China. There's also plenty of criticisms to be laid at the feet of the U.S. policymakers and how they've handled stuff. And so, I don't believe that the U.S. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I thought you were done. Go ahead. Finish one.
I was going to say, I don't fundamentally believe that the UN is going to fix much, if anything. I don't want to tear it down tomorrow because I think that'd be destructive. But I think that people, wherever you're at, have to start realizing. And when I see this, I think a lot of people, if I say this, I would agree with them that the UN's not going to do anything. They're like, oh, yeah, it's not going to do anything. Okay, well, since it's not going to do anything, we have to do something different. And we can't just say we know it's not going to do anything. We have to push for something, which is either that's better tax code in the U.S., better tax code in the foreign country, trade agreements, whatever. We have to push for something, knowing that this thing's not going to work. Because if, to your point about the aid in this country that's starving to death, if there were a lot of things happening on the private sector, they wouldn't want the need for the UN aid wouldn't be there as much.
But do you think, like going back to what I said at the end there, I mean, do you think that the sort of the impetus is basically you have the resources, you need to be better in control of them, like that's on you? Or is it just like it doesn't not really, is that not part of the conversation really?
Yeah, I think part of it is, so I would say that any nation that has natural resources should immediately within a year, turn them over to all private citizens like we have in the U.S.
Good luck.
I know, but that is a wealth generation that would bring millions of people out of poverty. Now, of course, they'd probably expropriate.
That would change the entirety of the world. I mean, because like the U.S. is by far the exception, not the rule. I
It's
mean,
only
I think there's a couple others, but I mean, like but some of the other things that I think are important here. I pulled up. I was reading a couple of things this morning. Wanted to pull out some numbers here because I think it's an important context. Do you happen to by chance roughly or ballpark know what the fiscal budget for the Department of Defense is yearly?
Too high.
Well, yeah. Yes, you're helping me make my point. Not 900.
Is it 900 billion?
Is it 900? It's 7. I think it's like.
As you knew, you were just asking.
No, I'm asking you. So as I'm talking, if you can fact check me, I think it's somewhere between like 700 and 900 billion, if I'm not mistaken. But I think it's an important context for people to talk, or when we talk about the UN involvement and sort of the fiscal responsibility. In 2018, the U.S. government allocated $10 billion in aid to the UN. Only 1/3 of that was actually so there's two different fees for the UN. There's voluntary and there's assessed. Assessed fees are based on GDP and population size and some other metrics, and then voluntary is just what you want to give. So the US, their assessed fee was closer to about 3 billion, and they ended up giving, so the Congress ended up allocating 10. And in the context of our annual budget, $10 billion is literally next to nothing. Our foreign aid budget, again in 2018, which is the most recent numbers I could find that were published, our foreign aid budget for the entire foreign aid package was 50 billion. And so the 10 billion was what is that, 20%? 20% of foreign aid for the year. I mean, I can make a strong argument that falls in line with, in terms of fiscal responsibility only, just the dollars being spent. That doesn't really seem like a lot of money if the payout is commensurate. Like, so so that's why I was saying last week in that context, I think that there's an argument for being able to structure those organizations more favorably, because I think there's a strong argument that they don't work effectively and that the aims are off, etc. But I think that in terms of the dollars that we're talking about, they're and to what we're talking about, just as a point to throw out there, maybe there's a way that's to propose, if you are part of the UN and WHO, that means that your government allows the private citizens to own the resources. I mean, so I think there's ways to sort of get the buy-in that you want through that power. And I don't think that the answer is as you've heard certainly over the last couple of years, I'm not a fan of this isolationist movement. I don't think it helps domestically, and it certainly doesn't help internationally.
So yeah, okay. So let's talk about that. I looked up a couple things. It said between 650 and 750 is what I got for the budget, but it could be higher, so somewhere in there. So if you want to make the argument that we're spending, let's just say 700 million to make the math easy, 700 million. I'm sorry, billion. Thank you very much. Billion for our defense budget. And we're spending, you said 20 billion on
10.
I thought it was 20 and you had the other thing. 10? It's only 10. Okay. So 10 billion.
10 out of 50, 20%.
Okay, 20%. Okay. We're spending 10 billion on these international aid programs. I am happy, more than happy, to cut the defense budget in half and to leave those foreign aid policies in place today. I want to compromise just like that. Bang, done. Okay. So
that was easy. That wasn't hard at all.
Right. As long as everyone understands that by cutting half the budget and keeping the aid, we really didn't do anything. So
but by cutting the budget in half and keeping the aid, you made $300 billion for the country.
Oh, they'll spend it somewhere. Something else will come up. Don't worry. I like your optimism. You're an optimist.
Yeah, I mean, on a serious note, like it would never happen. But on a serious note, can you imagine the massive difference in our country across the board if every single penny of that, if we were to cut it by half, if you dumped all that money into well thought out Department of Education programs?
Well, I think we should Department of Education.
What's that?
I think we should abolish Department of Education.
That's why I said well thought out, because I agree. I was just talking about like because to your point, they're federal dollars. So you like to dream that they're not going to stay in the Fed is ridiculous. Right. And so like, but yes, I mean, I agree with you. Actually, that would be an interesting topic for another time. The Department of Education, because I agree with you. But
so let's just play this out though. Okay, so here's what I would say right now, off the top of my head, subject to change. We said, hey, we want to really tackle poverty across the world. First thing, one, we have to come up with each nation has to develop private ownership of the surface land and the minerals, right? And so I'm not saying that the government has to turn it all over to the citizens within 60 days or a year, because there's programs that are going on that they've invested a bunch of money, but we'll say within 5 years, reasonable. Within 5 years, the surface ownership of the world is transitioned back to the citizens, and the subsurface minerals are as well. So you got 5 years roughly to do that. First off, the optimism on that alone, the economic opportunity cost, like people going, oh my gosh, in 5 years I can do this, I can do this. Okay, that's what inspires people. Okay, then now 5 years from now, some of those resources will be depleted. Not everyone's gonna get the fair deal, because this is how it goes. But the wealth that would be generated moving forward to the populace, with populations across the world, would be, so whatever that chart that shows GDP growth, global growth, from like 1900, it's like up to the right. It would go like the chart, right? Because you would. Now, would you have some people who become kind of like borderline oligarchs and warlords and all kinds of crazy stuff? Yes, you would. That's what would happen. But you'd also get people who are good people who would give jobs. They'd feed their families. They would send their kids to college. All the things that we say we want, you would do that overnight, right? So that to me, those are some simple things. We talk about these solutions. We don't have to talk about UN aid programs here and there. Now, there are some nations. Again, anyone should go read the Bottom Being book, because it talks about there's definitely some nations in there that have problems that are quite complex, that I don't want to sit here and say I can snap my fingers and fix. They have more problems than this. They don't have resources. They don't have access. So but that alone would do stuff. Another thing it would do is it would encourage people to reconsider the values that they espouse as far as immigration, people, work visas, all those things. Because think, if you're a big farmer, and I'm picking a random country in Venezuela, let's say, and you have 5,000 acres, and all of a sudden you're about to inherit 5,000 acres of mineral rights as well. You're going, okay, now I want to run cattle, or make this a big ranch or a farm or whatever. I need to hire people. How do we want locals to come in? Do we want to bring in foreign people? Those are all questions, because now you become, instead of lifetime impoverishment, your lifetime generational wealth that we pass down to your kids. You're going to protect those assets. You're going to protect your land. All those things begin to change. So there are simple things like that get left out of the discussion, because we want to slap that aid Band-Aid on there. So if we want to cut the defense budget in half, which we should, there's no reason to have a defense budget like it is, cut it in half, leave the aid in place. Here's the thing, Ben, for me with these solutions, it feels like we say, hey, this is step one of a 5-step process. Well, and then we do step one, like, hey, we did step one. It's like, no. You have to be resolved to do step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5 to get the results that you need. And oftentimes we do step 1 and we're like, that's it. Good. We'll smoke the cigar.
What if I were to tell you that, so we've been talking for 30, 45 minutes ago. So what if I were to tell you that it sounds like what you're sort of, I feel like your version, or like your definition of diplomacy is more sort of hypocritical, because like when I talk about diplomacy, I'm talking about just sort of like how to play nice with the other nations around the country, or around the world.
Yeah, and so my fear. So I'm not an isolationist. I'm a free market libertarian. I think we should be able to trade. I think if you want to cut a deal with North Korea, can I talk about that in this podcast? Is that?
I'm okay with it. I got nothing to lose.
Okay, I put up the big "don't let the facts matter" now. So I mean, I think if you want to sell North Koreans soybeans, then I don't think there should be any U.S. law preventing you from doing that. Like that makes no sense to me. And furthermore, the only thing that you need the U.S. and North Korea involved in that transaction is a court system where a contract is set up, it can be fairly executed, that you can ensure payment and that you're ensuring delivery of product. Beyond that, I don't need the government involved with how to get this from A to B. There's shipping companies, but the more bureaucracy that comes in place, the more problems that there are, and then the less effective it is. We just know that the more bureaucracy, whatever it is, even if something we agree that's a common good we should have, it's just less effective.
So I'm not saying this is the reason behind the rule, because while it was a portion, I think it's mostly just sort of, for show. But I mean, I do think that, I mean, so I think I'm on the other side of the fence in certain cases, in the sense that I definitely do ascribe to the theory that if there's a nation like North Korea that is, explicitly suppressing its people and is a threat to freedom, I'll put it that way, because I do think there's an argument that there should not be any impetus to trade with that nation, and if they want to act that way, that they can either survive or not on their own. I think that there's few examples. I mean, like they're one of few. Like that example for me does not translate into China or Russia. I mean, like there's only a couple, but I mean,
back on that real quick.
Sure.
Okay, so this is the example I always use. I have a wife. I have 4 kids. In North Korea right now, there's a guy with a wife and 4 kids. Why would I ever not want to do anything I can? Okay, I'm gonna word this up too much. Why would I want to be prevented? Why would I want the government to prevent me from helping this man out from having food, water, clothing, and access to energy?
Because that's not the way it works. Because North Korean trading with you, who gets the money? The North Korean government. Because all the money goes to the government. So you wouldn't actually be helping the person. If you could paint a scenario where you were actually helping the family of 5 or 6, I'm all for that.
Well, all right. So there's okay. So let's talk about it like this. So part of the problem that we have with the North Korean example, and it's what you're touching on here, which is if we were to send aid to North Korea, then Kim Jong-un and his family would disproportionately keep it, right? Okay. And so your concern is Ryan shouldn't do business with North Korea because Kim Jong-un, if I sold them soybeans, he wouldn't distribute to the populace. Correct.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're buying soybeans from North Korea, you're buying government soybeans. You're not buying, Mr. Zhong's soybeans, right?
Like if I want to send them to him.
Sorry? Oh,
me sending them soybeans.
Okay, so if you're selling, you're selling them to the government coffers. You're not selling them to Mr. or Mrs. X on the street, because they're not able to interface with you because of the way that their country works. And so the only way you're selling product to them is the customer being the government, unless I misunderstand their trading policy. But
yeah. So let me ask you this: we know now the situation in North Korea is bad, and well, I mean, let's not. Yeah, I mean,
water's wet.
I mean, well, I think some people have a rosier picture of North Korea than what's going on. Like they view it as kind of like the Nazis of World War II, and that's not the case. Like this is an impoverished nation of people that are barely hanging on, and the few top of the elite are making it. Think about how the media portrays them. The media portrays them as this great threat, and they could take us out anytime. It's like, okay, they all starving to death except for like 100 folk. So part of the reason they are starving is because their leaders are cruel people. Also, part of the reason they're starving is because no one's allowed to trade with them. Now,
but that's a North Korean thing, right? Like if the U.S. wants to change that, the U.S. can't do anything to change that.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong here. Let's just tease this out. I can't sell the North Koreans, and I'm not trying to for the NSA that's listening right now, or FBI or CSI or TSA.
Any of these things.
Yeah, whatever group you're talking
about. Any of the acronyms.
Yeah, any of them. Snowden. If I wanted to sell something to the North Korean government, your problem is only that you don't think it would get to the people.
Correct.
But if it would get to the people, you'd have no problem with it.
Correct.
Right. So the only way to know if it would get to the people or not is to let me trade with them.
No, because they've. I mean, it's not a thesis. I mean, it's not a theory. It's not a hypothesis. I mean, they have shown that they anything they grow for the government. Any money is for the government. Like they have shown how they respond to resource allocation. So it's not like it's like, oh, if we send soybeans over there, we don't know what will happen. I mean, we know exactly what will happen. Like this, like it's not a secret like you were saying, but like it's not a secret that the supermarkets in North Korea are complete, like they're storefronts, but there's nothing in there. It's when you walk around towns when they have diplomatic visits, like there's people there, but they're all staged. And when there's not a diplomatic visit, they're ghost towns. I mean, like none of these things are secrets, and like, but that's not diplomatic pressures making that happen. That's North Korea making their own decision. And so, like, to think that by sending them aid, that would force them to change the decision and reallocate those resources. I don't follow that. I don't follow that line.
Well, okay, so this is interesting. So you might be right here. I don't know. And again,
we timestamp this 55 minutes 43 seconds. Sorry, go ahead.
Hold on. Sorry, there we go. Put the big boy up there again. Okay, in what I'm proposing, I would sell soybeans to Kim Jong-un or his handler, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. Kim Jong-un would then walk out to the populace in my thesis here and say, oh my gracious, I have given more food for my people. Here you go. And he would take all the credit and the glory and pretend like he grew it out of his backyard garden. I'm not saying he'd be fat overnight, but he would.
But I think my problem with that thesis is that it's not that North Korea doesn't have food. It's not that it's not that the food doesn't exist in the country. It's that the people don't get it. It's the people that like with wealth and the people with power that do. But it's not like that the food doesn't grow. It's not like they don't have farmland in order to grow things. It's not like the land is inhospitable to farming. They're not allowed to, like they're not allowed to prosper, and like they don't own the land that they live on, etc. Right? And so like if Kim Jong-un wanted to be the savior of his people and have them be very well fed and well educated and well armed and all these things, I could be wrong about this, but I believe that the country has the resources at its disposal to do so. But just like the U.S., they spend a ridiculous amount of money on defense. But unlike the U.S., they have no money for anything else. So, like, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. So now that you're teasing it out, I had to go do some research because you could be right on that. My understanding on North Korea stuff is obviously that they disproportionately steal from the population for the top. But my understanding was they didn't actually have enough resources to equally go around. I'm not saying that he would be passing out candy bars on Tuesday just to do it, but
no. So do some research on that. But let me change the conversation because I think what you're saying is spot on, but maybe just the venue is wrong. So rather than North Korea, Venezuela, because Venezuela they have a lot of restrictions on certain trade and they have a lot of restrictions on certain things. But if I want to do a deal with a business owner in Venezuela, I can do a business deal with a business owner in Venezuela. Right. Directly. I don't have to go through the government, but it still has sort of the same, like as in like if you're what was it? Was it China that was trying to buy Venezuelan oil a few months ago? And they got caught. I think it was. You don't remember?
I think they own it, don't they?
What's that?
Don't they own the Venezuelan oil or a lot of it?
Oh, then it must have been Russia. It was one of the. You're right. Yeah, I mean yes. So it must have been Russia. One of the other ones was trying to broker it, and they got caught.
Well, they were, Iran was doing a deal with them.
Maybe it was Iran. It was one of those guys over there.
Yeah.
But but back to your point. I mean, I think that going back to what you were saying. So the U.S. very well could say, "Hey, Venezuela, if you give the resources back to the private citizens, we will eliminate all sanctions and we'll help you get brought back online." I think the government would be all about that.
Whose government? Our government?
The Venezuelan government.
Well, yeah.
If packaged correctly, if the U.S. said, "Hey, listen, we'll call the hounds off if you give the resources back to your people," like I think there's a conversation to be had there.
Okay, I think you're possibly right, and I think we can close on a 100% agreement here as we come up on the 1 hour mark. We both agree that it was preposterous, that it's illegal to buy a Cuban cigar.
Yes, 100%.
100%.
All day. No question.
100%. Oh, wrong one. Wait. Do I not have applause? No, I don't have applause. Sorry. I was. I mean, I feel like we should end on a high note there. It's preposterous you can't buy Cuban cigars, and that is my. So we'll
Still not? I thought that changed. I thought that changed.
No. I'm saying in the history of the U.S., it's preposterous that was against the law.
Oh well, yeah.
Yeah. Like they may have rolled it back. I think Trump tried to do something with it. I don't know. I don't buy cigars regularly, I have to say. I just say this that and so the North Korea thing, you might be right. I had to think through that a little bit more. But generally speaking, the fact that I can't buy a Cuban cigar because reasons is asinine, and it doesn't hurt anyone except for the people in Cuba. So okay. Well, I think we should end there. Like, it feels pretty good.
End scene. I'm with it.
Get the train fired up. All right, Ben. When do you head to DC?
I'm staying away from there for a while.
Come on now. You know you're headed to DC.
You're not going to the inauguration? Oh, wait, you're not allowed to. That's right.
You know, my wife asked me that night. She goes, "Hey, do you want to go?" I'm like, maybe.
You know, Airbnb canceled every single reservation for the entire week.
Yeah, I looked it up, like the green zone, the red zone, in Baghdad. This is DC I'm talking about, and you couldn't really get within.
Too soon. Too soon.
Well, you know that then. Until next week.